Ever wonder how a couple air mattresses could, well, turn into a global travel empire?
Yeah, it's a wild story.
Today's deep dive, we're going to unpack the Airbnb story. And believe me, you're going to want to stick around for this one.
It's one of those stories, really highlights how a simple idea had to come from somewhere, right? Necessity. It can end up reshaping an entire industry.
Totally. So picture this. It's 2007, San Francisco. 3 friends, Brian, Joe, and Nathan. They're struggling to make rent.
Classic San Francisco.
Right. A huge design conference comes to town. Hotels are completely booked. Prices are through the roof. Sound familiar?
Oh yeah, I've been there. It's like trying to find a parking spot on a Saturday. Impossible.
Exactly. So most people, they just complain about the hotel prices.
Right.
But not these guys. They see an opportunity.
And not just any opportunity. We're talking about renting out air mattresses.
Yeah.
On their living room floor.
$80 a night with breakfast.
The breakfast of champions.
They were meeting a need, filling a gap. But little did they know, they were about to turn the entire hospitality industry on its head.
I mean, at the time, were they even thinking that big? Or was it just, hey, let's make rent this month?
That's a good question, but it is a good reminder, right? Sometimes the most disruptive ideas, they come from just solving a problem right in front of you, not some master plan to take over the world.
Exactly. It's about seeing what everyone else sees and thinking what no one else is thinking.
Love it. Okay, so they've got their air mattresses all blown up, pot of coffee brewing. They're ready to welcome their first guests.
I bet they were a little nervous, too. I mean, strangers sleeping on your floor, that's a big step.
Oh, I can't imagine the early days were easy. Convincing people to ditch the hotel and crash at a stranger's place? That takes some serious convincing, even today.
You're telling me? Remember, this was 2007. Nobody was talking about the sharing economy back then.
Right. Suggesting someone stay in a stranger's house back then, it's like, are you sending them to a horror movie?
Exactly. Trust and safety online. Completely different world back then. It really speaks volumes about these guys, They stuck with it, really believed in their idea.
Persistence, man. It's the secret sauce.
Totally. But belief doesn't pay the bills, does it? They had to get creative, scrappy even, to keep Airbnb going. And I'm not talking about leaving mints on the pillows.
Okay, now you've got me intrigued. What did they do? Sell timeshares on the air mattresses.
Even better, picture this. Our struggling entrepreneurs, knee-deep in air mattresses, decide to launch breakfast cereal.
Wait, what? The cereal? Like, for breakfast?
Oh, but this wasn't your average box of Sugar Puffs. They tapped into that 2008 election buzz, right? Obama, McCain, the whole shebang. They created Obama O's and Cat McCain.
You're kidding. They actually sold politically themed breakfast cereal.
Oh, they were serious as a heart attack. It's hilarious, but it tells you a lot about their hustle. Whatever it took to keep the lights on, to keep their dream alive, even if it meant diving headfirst into the world of political breakfast cereal.
That's dedication. But it makes you wonder, what was it about this whole air mattress idea that finally resonated with people? Was it just a matter of time, or was something bigger happening?
It's a great question, and the answer is a bit of both, really. It wasn't just about time, though that was a factor. It was about tapping into something much deeper, I think, like a shift, in how travelers wanted to experience things.
You mean like getting away from the typical hotels, the same old vacation packages, right?
Yeah, exactly. People are craving something different, something real, authentic, less transactional, more like personal and memorable. And Airbnb, it gave them that platform, that ability to connect with places and people in a completely new way.
Okay, but let's be real for a sec. You're talking about staying in a total stranger's house. Or, on the flip side, having strangers crash at your place. That takes a huge leap of faith, doesn't it? How did Airbnb bridge that gap, that trust gap?
Well, that's where their system, the user reviews and host ratings, pure genius. They really understood right from the beginning that to make this whole thing work, especially back then, they needed transparency and accountability.
Right, because if some random website tells me it's okay to stay in a stranger's basement apartment, am I really going to believe them? Probably not.
Exactly. But if you see that apartment's got 100 reviews, all positive, from people who've actually stayed there, well, that changes things. It's like instant credibility.
So it's like a two-way street. Guests rate their stay, hosts rate the guests.
Exactly. This whole feedback loop, it was incredibly powerful. Potential guests get the real scoop on a listing before they book. And hosts, they get a glimpse into who they're letting into their homes. It sounds obvious now, but it was pretty groundbreaking at the time.
Yeah, it's true. It's like having a friend, you trust their judgment, vouch for something before you try it yourself. Okay, but there's got to be more to it, right? It wasn't just the reviews, was it? Didn't Airbnb also kind of change the game when it came to the whole, user experience?
You're absolutely right. They were way ahead of the curve on that. Think about it, right? You're trying to convince people to book a complete stranger's place online. That whole process has to be super smooth, easy, intuitive. If it's a pain, they're going to click away and find a hotel.
Ah, so that's where the app comes in, right?
Bingo. They poured a ton of resources, energy into designing an app that was not just functional, but fun to use. Suddenly, boom, you could search for any kind of place in the world, browse pictures, read reviews, and book instantly, all from your phone.
They basically took all the headache out of travel planning. You don't have to call up a travel agent, wait on hold forever. You're not stuck sifting through those generic hotel websites.
Exactly. And I think what they really understood early on was that creating that smooth, enjoyable experience for both hosts and guests was just as important as the listings themselves, especially back then when the whole concept was so new. They had to nail it.
And let's not forget the cool factor. Yeah, you could find a spare room to crash in, sure, but you could also find tree houses, castles. I even saw a yurt in the middle of the desert once. You're not getting that on your average hotel website.
You said it. They really understood that people, they want unique experiences, adventure, authenticity. It's not just about a place to sleep, it's about the story. Staying in a real home with real people, even if it's just for a night or two, it just feels more, personal, less like a business transaction.
It's kind of brilliant when you think about it. They took something as simple as, hey, I've got an extra room, and turned it into a global phenomenon. But I'm guessing this kind of rapid growth, it must have come with its fair share of challenges too, right?
Yeah, no doubt about that. Every success story, there's always a few speed bumps along the way, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And for Airbnb, their popularity exploded. It's like, what do you do when you suddenly have this massive platform, millions of users, properties all over the world? It's a whole new set of challenges.
Yeah, I bet. What were some of the biggest hurdles they faced?
Well, for starters, they ran headfirst into the whole, regulation thing.
Yeah. Governments, cities, they're not exactly known for their lightning-fast responses to new technology.
It's true. And Airbnb was growing so fast. Way faster than a lot of cities could even, process what was happening, let alone regulate it. Suddenly, you've got concerns about housing markets, neighborhoods changing. So how do you balance that? How do you brace something new, innovative, but also make sure it's not disrupting communities or creating unintended consequences?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And to be fair to Airbnb, they've been pretty proactive, trying to work with cities, figure out regulations that make sense, address those concerns. But it's an ongoing conversation, for sure. And it really highlights a bigger issue, I think. Technology moves so fast, but the systems we have in place, not so much.
It's something to think about. Okay, so we've talked about the ups, the downs, the breakfast cereals, but when you boil it all down, what's the takeaway from the Airbnb story? Why should people care?
I think at its core, it's a powerful reminder, proof that even the smallest idea, even something that seems kind of out there, can have a huge impact.
They started with a way to make rent, ended up revolutionizing an entire industry.
Exactly. It all goes back to what we were talking about earlier. See a problem, a need, and then don't be afraid to imagine a solution. Necessity is the mother of invention. Isn't that how the saying goes?
It is. And sometimes those inventions, they turn into something way bigger than we could have ever imagined. So to wrap things up, whether you're planning your next trip, or maybe you've got a spare room and you're feeling entrepreneurial, remember the Airbnb story?
It's all about creativity, right?
Yeah.
And resilience. And honestly, just being willing to take a chance, challenge the way things have always been done.
I love it. Who knows? Maybe someone listening right now, they've got the next big idea brewing, the one that changes everything. One air mattress or bowl of cereal at a time.
Now, wouldn't that be something?
It sure would. Until next time, everyone, keep exploring, keep innovating, and remember, sometimes the most amazing journeys, they start with a single step, or maybe, just maybe, an air pump.